High in the crisp, pine-scented air of the Bright Peak National Park, sunlight flickered through towering evergreens, illuminating patches of mossy ground. Ribbons of a cool breeze wove among the trees, carrying the faint calls of distant birds. Amid the tapestry of nature's hush, a small group of tourists ambled along a well-worn trail, gazing in awe at the rugged peaks that loomed above. They chattered about the region's reputation for breathtaking vistas and unpredictable weather. Guides often warned that folks should stick together. Straying off the path too far in this wilderness could lead to confusion, abrupt weather changes, or dangerous terrain. Among them strode Alexis, a seasoned traveler with dark hair braided under a cap. Drawn to the whispering promise of mountain solitude, she joined this guided tour in hopes of capturing photos of hidden waterfalls and wildlife. The group, about 12 in total, marched at a leisurely pace, occasionally pausing to snap pictures or consult the trail map. Near the back, a small family wrangled a teenage son who seemed more absorbed in his phone than in the scenery. The guide, an affable ranger named Lee, carried the responsibility of ensuring no one ventured astray. Yet the mountain had her own secrets. If a hiker strayed off the main trail, it didn't take much to lose bearings among the dense undergrowth, the repeating patterns of pine trunks, and the hushed stillness broken only by distant water flow. In the event someone got lost, rescue might be delayed by the park's sheer expanse. Sunset brought colder air and uncertain footing. At a small clearing near midday, the group halted for a quick break. Lee pointed out a vantage to the west, where the valley spread in a green patchwork, flecked with rivers shining under the sun. Cameras clicked, conversation ebbed, some rummaged for trail mix or water. Unnoticed by most was a lone hiker trailing behind, seemingly engrossed in the environment, scanning the forest floor, exclaiming in delight at small mushrooms or unusual rock formations. This was Sasha, a novice nature enthusiast who had joined the group last minute. Sasha's curiosity often outweighed her sense of caution. If something in the woods caught her eye, she might wander closer, enthralled by an unexpected plant or a trickling creek. Meanwhile, a short distance away from the main path, near a smaller side trail that branched toward the eastern ridges, a stocky pitbull with a glossy coat sniffed at a cluster of ferns. This was Juno, traveling with her owner, Connor, who was exploring the park in a more casual manner. Juno wore a simple harness embroidered with small mountain symbols, a testament to her nature-loving companion. While many in society saw pitbulls as an urban breed or had misconceptions about their temperament, Connor trusted Juno's instincts and sturdy build for the outdoors. He'd taught her to stay close on hikes, to ignore wildlife, and to respond quickly if someone called out. She was as much a companion as a protector. Connor had chosen a less crowded portion of the park for their day's outing, hoping to avoid the typical tourist throngs. He relished the idea of peaceful trails, letting Juno sniff the fresh pine needles. But as noon approached, a mild sense of restlessness seized him, perhaps from the thin mountain air or the slight drop in barometric pressure. Juno, too, seemed on edge, lifting her head and glancing west, ears swiveling as though picking up faint echoes. Connor patted her side. "Let's keep going, girl," he said, leading them on a footpath that seemed to wind around a boulder-strewn slope. Back on the main route, the guided group prepared to move on after their break. The family reorganized backpacks, the teenage boys snapping a quick photo or two. Lee checked the head count, reminded everyone to stay together, and resumed the hike. At first, no one noticed Sasha was further behind than usual, crouching near a fallen log, fascinated by a patch of wild orchids peeking from the moss. She made mental notes to share with her friends who collected flora data. By the time Sasha rose from her admiration of the orchids, she saw the group was gone, the sound of their chatter gone silent. She quickened her pace, trying to catch up. A fork in the trail confused her. Did they go left or continue right? She glimpsed a color flutter and veered left, certain she'd seen a flash of someone's jacket, but it turned out to be just a bright piece of bark. Sasha frowned, calling out a tentative, "Hello? Wait up." The forest responded with subdued quiet. A creeping sense of concern tugged at her. She followed the left path a bit further, scanning for footprints or the echo of voices. But the route seemed narrower, less trodden. Soon, the trail meandered around large rocks, half obscured by thick brush. Sasha's stomach fluttered in worry. She tried to double back, but the forest's uniformity played tricks on her. She ended up in a clearing that didn't look familiar. The hush of the mountain pressed in. After a fruitless half-hour, Sasha's mild worry escalated. She realized she'd lost track of the main route. With no sign of the group, her phone showed no signal in these remote slopes. She recalled the guide's warnings. Stay on the path. Keep up with the group. Watch your bearings. Her heart pounded as she recognized her predicament, alone, in a vast wilderness, nearing midday with no immediate rescue in sight. Time slipped by. Sasha wandered aimlessly, occasionally calling out in hopes someone might hear. The thick canopy muffled her voice. She tried to remain calm, remembering survival tips. Stick to a single direction. If possible, find a vantage. But the slopes, boulders, and uniform pines made orientation tricky. Anxiety churned. Her water bottle was half empty. She had limited snacks, and the shadows hinted that the day marched on. She dreaded the notion of being out there when night chilled the mountain air. Meanwhile, the guided group had covered more ground under Lee's direction. It wasn't until they reached a panoramic overlook that Lee realized Sasha was missing. A quick head count came up short. Alarm spread through the group. The teen with his phone shrugged, saying he hadn't noticed her behind them. Others said they last saw Sasha poking at a log near the break spot. Lee's face paled, fear that a lost hiker might wander into steep drops or be stuck after dark. She quickly phoned the park's ranger station, describing Sasha's appearance and probable location. A missing person scenario was the last thing they wanted in these rugged trails. Rangers mobilized a preliminary search, but the park's vastness hampered quick success. Word spread among certain adventurous hikers that someone might be missing on the southwestern trails. If no sign of her by dusk, a full search party would be arranged. In a separate corner of the wilderness, Connor and Juno continued their leisurely exploration. The thick pines overhead filtered the sun into dappled patterns on the forest floor. Juno, trotting a step ahead, frequently raised her muzzle to sniff new scents. Her strong sense of smell picked up wildlife traces, plant aromas, or the faint presence of other humans who'd passed hours before. As the afternoon deepened, Juno's posture changed. Her ears shot forward, tail giving a curious wag. Then stiffening, she let out a low whine. Stepping off the path, nose to the ground, Connor, cautious, paused. "What is it, girl?" he asked. The Pitbull started pulling gently, sniffing a faint track. Connor was used to letting Juno investigate. Sometimes it was an animal trail, other times just a curious smell. But this time, the dog's whine had an urgent tone. Connor followed, letting Juno guide him about 10 paces off the main route, where she sniffed the bark of a large pine. He frowned, scanning for clues. A boot print in the soil? Possibly. He bent down, indeed. The imprint of a smallish hiking boot pressed into the damp earth. Leading further downslope, Juno let out another whine, glancing at Connor as if waiting for permission to continue. "You smell something?" he murmured. The Pitbull's tail wagged once, certain of her track. Connor, intrigued, allowed her to progress carefully. As he checked the time, they still had hours before sunset, but it was best not to wander too far. He figured they'd investigate a bit, see if it was just an old print, then return to the route. As they followed the faint footprints, Juno's body language grew more insistent. She trotted forward, occasionally stopping to verify the scent. Connor's curiosity piqued. Someone had clearly left the official path. Why? Could they be lost? He recalled hearing nothing from rangers. But that didn't mean a missing hiker wasn't out here. He decided that if they found signs of trouble, he'd phone the station. Another half-mile meandered by, each turn revealing more thick undergrowth, battered leaves, a patch of disturbed moss. Once, Juno let out a short bark. Halting at a clearing, Connor crouched to examine a snagged piece of bright fabric on a branch, like a shred from a jacket or shirt. "This is fresh," he muttered. The dog sniffed it, tail wagging faster. The realization that they might be on a rescue track pressed upon Connor. "All right, girl, let's keep going," he said, adrenaline nudging him forward. At the same time, Sasha's situation worsened. Exhausted from wandering, she slumped against a trunk, breathing raggedly, her water nearly gone, her phone battery low. She'd tried climbing a small rock outcrop to spot the main trail but only saw endless forest canopy. Fear gnawed at her. Her best hope was to find a sign of civilization, a trail marker, a campsite, or maybe hear voices. The hours ticked by with no success. She guessed it was late afternoon. The sun's angle signaled that in a few hours, the golden glow would fade into dusk. She dreaded that moment, certain her body temperature would plummet. Trying to remain calm, she stood, forging a new path in what she guessed was north. Though the thick canopy made direction guesses uncertain, each step weighed on her battered morale. Her mind whirled with regrets, straying from the group, ignoring the guide's instructions, letting her curiosity overshadow caution. Every snap of a twig underfoot made her jump, conscious that wildlife might lurk. The mountain's hush bore down. Then, a faint bark. She froze. The sound was distant, muffled by the forest, but unmistakably a dog's bark. Hope flared in her chest. She let out a hoarse shout. "Hello, over here." She repeated it until her voice cracked. Again, the forest muffled her cries. No immediate answer. Panic flickered. Perhaps it was just an echo or a random dog with other hikers who'd never cross her path. But she pressed on, stumbling toward where she believed the bark originated. Juno barked a second time, pausing to sniff the air. She sensed a faint trace of human presence, now stronger with each yard they traveled. Connor scanned for more footprints, marveling that the dog seemed to know exactly which direction to pick. "You sure, girl?" he asked quietly. Juno let out a soft huff. Forging onward, the terrain sloped downward, making each step precarious on damp soil. Boulders jutted, covered in moss. Connor held the dog's harness, steadying them both. At a rocky outcrop, Juno abruptly pricked her ears. Letting out a whine, Connor halted, listening. For a moment, he thought he heard something, a faint voice. The wind rustled pine needles, nearly masking it. He called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" Silence. Then a half-choked yell. Connor's pulse quickened. "We're coming," he shouted. Juno barked, tail wagging as though she understood they'd made contact. Pushing through dense brush, they followed the sound. Connor emerged into a small clearing to see a figure sprawled near a rock. Half sobbing, the figure jerked upright at his approach, relief flooding her face. It was Sasha, disheveled and pale, eyes wide with gratitude. "Oh, thank God. I got lost," she stammered, tears brimming. Juno trotted forward, sniffing Sasha's boots, then pressing close to her leg as though comforting her. Connor inhaled slowly, kneeling to check Sasha for injuries. She was scratched, exhausted, but didn't appear severely hurt. "You're all right," he murmured. "We've got you. Let's get you out of here." Sasha trembled, leaning her cheek against Juno's neck in a wave of emotional relief. I got separated from my group hours ago. Thank you for finding me," she whispered, voice cracking. Juno responded with a gentle whine, as though disclaiming any hero label. After offering Sasha water from his spare bottle, Connor used his phone to see if a signal was available. A weak bar flickered. With some effort, he managed a short call to the park's ranger station, explaining he'd found a lost hiker named Sasha near the southwestern slope. The rangers, clearly relieved, asked for their approximate coordinates. Connor gave the best estimate he could. Using a navigation app, they told him to stay put if possible or move to higher ground for extraction. Nightfall was a few hours away, so a rescue team might intercept them if needed. Sasha, tears drying, expressed how she'd feared she'd spend the night in the cold. She petted Juno's head between shaky breaths. "I heard barking. I had a hunch, you're my lifesavers," she said, tone full of raw gratitude. Juno wagged, leaning into Sasha's side. Connor gently suggested they find a safer spot, maybe near a known side trail or vantage. Sasha agreed, letting him guide her. Juno took point, tail flicking as she led them back along the route she'd sniffed out. It struck Sasha how the dog seemed to navigate with uncanny precision. She just knows where to go?" she asked. Connor nodded. "Her nose is incredible. She probably followed your scent from the main trail. Pitbulls have a strong sense of smell. Same as many dogs. She's just well trained to stay on a track." Sasha marveled at how a breed so often maligned in the media had become her guardian in the wilderness. A wave of guilt and wonderment mingled in her chest. She'd never disliked pitbulls. but she never realized how capable they were as search partners. Step by careful step, they maneuvered around boulders and down a narrow slope, eventually hitting a small game trail that opened onto a broader route. By then, the sun angled low, coloring the sky in hues of gold and pink. The shadows lengthened. Sasha's exhaustion weighed on her, but relief spurred her forward. Juno occasionally glanced back to ensure she followed. Connor offered a supportive arm whenever Sasha wobbled on loose gravel. Then, in the distance, they heard faint voices calling Sasha's name. Sasha's throat clenched. "That's them," she gasped. Her eyes lighting up, she cupped her hands, shouting back. Connor joined, yelling to confirm their position. Soon, a small party of rangers emerged around a bend, Lee, the original guide, among them, face etched with worry that lifted upon seeing Sasha. Cries of relief filled the air. Sasha dissolved into tears as Lee hugged her, scolding gently about stepping off the path. The rangers, out of breath, offered thanks to Connor for intervening. "Or thank her," Connor said, patting Juno, who accepted the ranger's affectionate ruffle. Sasha, half laughing through tears, explained how the barking guided her to call out, how the dog and man found her in the clearing. She recounted the missed group, the hours of wandering. The rangers made notes for a quick incident report, concluding that Sasha was dehydrated but stable, no major injuries. They insisted on escorting her back to the main trailhead, praising Juno's role in a potential life-saving scenario. As they headed toward the rendezvous point, the sky's brilliant sunset glowed across the peaks, a vibrant backdrop to the day's tension. Sasha walked slowly, leaning on Lee for support, occasionally turning to look at Juno. In her watery eyes lay a deep gratitude, words insufficient to express. She managed a husky, "Thank you," to Connor, who modestly shook his head, crediting the dog's alert nose. Lee, guiding them, added softly, "We owe you both. Another hour and we might have had a more urgent search." The group quietly recognized the risk the lost hiker faced if night had caught her alone among these rugged slopes. Back at the main ranger station near dusk, the story spread among staff. A lost hiker, found by a visiting hiker's Pitbull, safe from an overnight ordeal. Sasha spent a short while recuperating, sipping electrolyte drinks while Lee wrote an official summary, praising Juno's contribution. The mention of Pitbull rescue stirred chatter among the rangers. Some, who harbored old biases, approached with caution, but quickly warmed upon meeting Juno. Wagging a polite greeting, they saw not a menacing breed, but a calm, capable animal. After ensuring Sasha's well-being, the rangers released her with instructions to rest at a nearby lodge. She parted from Connor and Juno with tears still shining. I'll never forget this," she whispered, stroking Juno's head. "You saved me from a nightmare." The dog wagged, eyes gentle. Connor gave Sasha a supportive nod. "Just stay safe next time. These mountains can be tricky." The ephemeral hush of night descended over the station. Connor felt drained but oddly elated, a mixture of relief and pride in Juno's instincts. The ranger on duty, Officer Sierra, invited them to linger for a cup of coffee. Expressing curiosity about how Juno had trained for such a skill, Connor explained he'd always encouraged the dog to follow scents, praising her each time she located something correctly, whether lost items or a friend hidden behind trees. "She's not a formal search and rescue dog," he clarified with a chuckle, "but apparently, she's a natural." Sipping coffee by the station's outdoor fire pit, the sky above them erupted in stars. Free from city lights, the silhouettes of pine and looming peaks framed a cosmic tapestry. Juno dozed with her chin on Connor's boot, the stress of the day replaced by a content sigh. Sierra mused about how many Pitbull hero stories she'd heard lately, adding that sometimes the breed's negative representative overshadowed these quiet acts of loyalty. Connor nodded, mind drifting to how narrow biases could overshadow genuine capability. Eventually, Connor and Juno set off for their campsite, trekking under starlight. The day's events circled in his head, the faint footprints, Juno's quiet determination, Sasha's fearful relief. Tomorrow, he thought, might bring a new normal for Sasha. Perhaps she'd see Pitbulls in a different light, or approach the wilderness with fresh respect. As for Juno, she had simply done what she did best, sense trouble and respond with unwavering loyalty. At their campsite, Connor unrolled a sleeping bag, letting Juno settle on her own plush mat. The mountain air held a cool crispness, the forest a hush. He gazed at the dog, grateful for the thread of companionship that connected them. Not every day do you rescue a lost hiker. Yet in these mountains, anything was possible. He drifted to sleep with the sound of the breeze in the pines. A subtle reassurance that in nature's vastness, a bond between man and dog can be life-saving. The next morning, bright sunbeams filtered through the canopy, warming the campsite. Connor rose early, Juno stretching with a big yawn. They planned to head back to the main ranger station or a nearby vantage point for more exploration. Perhaps they'd cross paths with Sasha once more, or simply roam the trails in a final leisurely day. The memory of the rescue still glowed. He scratched Juno's ears, murmuring thanks for her unerring nose. Sure enough, after packing and hiking back toward the station, they encountered Sasha outside a small cafe in the park's visitor complex. She rushed up to them, face alight with relief. "I was just about to leave, but had to see you two again," she said breathlessly. She introduced them to her travel buddy from the group tour, who had recovered her belongings. Sasha recounted how she'd told everyone the story. The guide, Lee, also joined them, praising Juno's role. The dog received a wave of affectionate pats and compliments, wagging modestly at the attention. Sasha then handed Connor a small slip of paper with her contact info. "If you ever need anything, I just want to repay this somehow," she insisted. Connor laughed softly, pocketing the paper. "We just did what anyone would if they found footprints leading to a lost hiker. But if it helps, maybe share that Pitbulls can be pretty amazing. That's all the thanks we need." Sasha's eyes misted. "I promise," she said firmly. Later, as Connor and Juno strolled a scenic loop near the park entrance, passerby occasionally recognized them from the talk among rangers. "Hey, that's the Pitbull who found the lost hiker." The dog responded with her usual gentle calm, tail swishing. Connor, while not craving attention, found it heartening to see acceptance shape. A few weeks prior, half these people might have avoided them on the trail. Now, they approached with smiles. Each conversation reinforced the notion that Juno's quiet heroism had chipped away at prejudices. Come noon, the time arrived for Connor and Juno to leave the park. They'd only planned a short trip. He loaded gear into his battered SUV, letting the dog hop in the passenger seat. As he pulled onto the winding road leading away from Bright Peak National Park, the memories lingered: towering pines, panoramic vistas, that hush broken by a lost hiker's relief. "We'll come back," he told Juno, voice echoing slightly in the car's interior. The dog tilted her head, as if understanding. "You have a knack for these mountains." Far behind, in the quiet trails and vantage points of the park, some new hikers ambled, unaware of the near miss that had occurred. But among the rangers and certain visitors, the story would persist, of a Pitbull who used her strong nose and unwavering loyalty to help a lost traveler. And among those who heard, perhaps the next time they spotted a stocky, broad-chested dog on a trail, they'd recall how empathy and skill knew no breed boundaries, how a dog's protective spirit could reach beyond family to help a stranger in peril. In the days following Juno's remarkable rescue of Sasha in Bright Peak National Park, the mountain air settled back into its steady rhythm of crisp mornings and silent, star-filled nights. Yet word of the Pitbull's intervention had a subtle way of traveling far beyond the park's boundaries. Rangers recounted the tale around campfires. Some hikers shared social media posts about the lost hiker rescue. And Sasha herself returned home determined to tell her friends of how a misunderstood breed helped save her from a perilous night on the slopes. For Sasha, life back in the city felt strangely altered by her brush with danger. Each time she slipped on her hiking boots, she recalled stumbling through undergrowth, the dreaded sense of isolation, and finally the sight of Juno bounding into view. At a small gathering with friends, Sasha described the dog's serious eyes and strong presence, how she'd pressed her muzzle against Sasha's leg as if offering reassurance. "I never expected a Pitbull, of all dogs, to be the one," she admitted, realizing only later how that statement revealed her own biases. She vowed to do better, if a loyal Pitbull could guide her to safety. Perhaps she owed it to the breed to rewrite any lingering stereotypes she held. Inspired by the experience, she wrote a heartfelt post on her personal blog titled, "Lost on Bright Peak, Saved by a Pitbull's Nose." She recounted her missteps, how curiosity led her astray, the swift tumble into fear, and the sudden bark that signaled rescue. She ended with a note about reevaluating prejudices against scary-looking breeds when I needed help most. It arrived in the form of a stocky, big-headed dog who showed more care than any cynic might expect. The post garnered modest attention, with strangers commenting messages of relief or recounting their own pitbull encounters. Meanwhile, Connor returned to his usual routine in a small suburban neighborhood outside the city. He had not expected the mountain trip to bring them mild local fame. But as soon as he visited the dog park or ran errands, a few acquaintances asked, "Isn't that the pitbull who found the lost hiker?" He'd nod, offering a humble yes, letting Juno wag politely. Some neighbors, previously hesitant, approached for a pat on Juno's head. "She's so sweet," they'd remark, voice tinted with awe. Connor would smile, reaffirming the dog's calm nature. Over time, the story softened the attitudes of folks who once crossed the street to avoid a pitbull's path. One sunny afternoon, as Connor loaded groceries into his SUV, a local reporter approached with a camera phone and a microphone. She was a freelance journalist for a regional news blog. Breathless, she introduced herself. "Heard rumors your pitbull tracked a missing hiker in Bright Peak. Mind if I ask a few questions?" Connor hesitated. He disliked spotlight, but eventually shrugged. He explained how Juno's sniffing led them to footprints, how the dog's bark allowed Sasha to call out. The reporter recorded a short interview, praising Juno as a real-life rescue dog. Connor clarified that Juno wasn't formally trained for search and rescue, just well-practiced in scent games. But she's got the heart for it, he concluded, patting the dog's side. The snippet, posted online under the headline, "Local Pitbull's Mountain Rescue," drew a wave of supportive comments. People commented how it gave them hope that pitbulls could be as heroic and gentle as any traditional breed. Some joked about Juno being an honorary park ranger. Connor read these comments, a mix of pride and discomfort at sudden attention. But he recognized it could help shift prejudice. If a single skeptic changed their mind, Juno's story had done good. Miles away, in Bright Peak's ranger station, an official mention of the incident was documented. Rangers, used to seeing trained rescue dogs assisting in mountain searches, found it refreshing that an ordinary visitor's pitbull had stepped in. Officer Sierra, who met Connor and Juno after the rescue, quietly pitched the idea of them returning to do a casual demonstration, showing how a dog might track footprints. The notion was informal, not a full program, but a way to expand visitors' understanding of canine abilities. She emailed Connor, half expecting no reply. To her surprise, he responded positively, curious about bridging education and breed acceptance. Summer advanced, bringing more tourists to Bright Peak's scenic trails. On a mild August weekend, Connor and Juno returned to the park, this time by invitation. Sasha, too, decided to come, though part of her still trembled at the memory of being lost. She wanted to reclaim the mountain with a sense of closure, and to see Juno again in a more relaxed context. They met at the ranger station, where Officer Sierra greeted them with a grin. "People keep asking if we have that pitbull on staff," she joked. "Might as well show them what she can do." They set up a casual demonstration in a grassy clearing near the visitor center. A handful of curious families gathered, some with kids, others with cameras. Sierra explained that while Juno wasn't an official rescue dog, she had tracked Sasha's scent through the forest. Connor let Juno sniff an item of clothing, a bandana, then had a volunteer hide the bandana behind a cluster of logs. The crowd watched as Juno methodically sniffed around, found the trail, and located the bandana within minutes. Applause broke out, and a child exclaimed, "Wow, she's like a superhero." Juno, tail wagging, seemed content with the fuss. Sasha quietly stood near the back, arms folded, observing with watery eyes. She recalled that day's fear, the cracking twigs, her trembling voice echoing in emptiness. Now, seeing the dog so calmly demonstrating her skill, it felt surreal. She approached at the demonstration's end, giving Juno a pat. "I still can't believe you found me," she said softly. Connor overheard, offering a smile. "I can't believe it either sometimes. She's got a gift." Meanwhile, among the watchers stood a small group of tourists from out of state. Listening raptly, one approached Sasha. asking for details. Another asked Connor if Juno might be trained further for official mountain patrol. Connor shrugged, explaining he had a day job. No immediate plans for formal SAR certification. But if the Rangers need a volunteer, we're around, he joked. The idea lingered, though. What if Juno's capabilities could help more hikers in trouble? As the demonstration wrapped up, the small crowd dispersed, some folks snapping final pictures with Juno. Sierra thanked them, promising to keep their contact info in case of future events. Sasha parted ways too, heading to a short trail with a friend. She carried a renewed sense of calm, as though confronting the place of her ordeal with gratitude rather than fear. Before leaving, she gave Juno one last hug, whispering, "I owe you everything." The dog merely wagged, face serene. Later that evening, Connor sat around a campfire near the park's base campground. Juno lay at his feet, occasionally shifting to nose at drifting embers. Another camper overheard talk about the Pitbull rescue dog, and soon a friendly circle formed around the fire. People shared their own dog stories, times when pets guided them from hazards or alerted them to real emergencies. The conversation felt universal, how a simple bark could unify child, adult, city, and wilderness. One camper, a middle-aged father named Rohan, listened intently. Then he recounted how he once believed pit bulls were all aggression until his sister adopted a gentle, couch-loving one. "Now, hearing your story, it just cements it. We judge too much by headlines. No wonder this dog can roam mountains and rescue lost hikers." He gave Juno a respectful nod, eyes shining in the firelight. As the night deepened, the group parted, leaving Connor and Juno under a canopy of stars. The moonglow revealed the silhouettes of tall pines. The hush of night descending. Connor gazed down at the dog, warmth in his heart. He realized how many people's perspectives had shifted just from hearing or seeing Juno's rescue. The quiet synergy of a man's best friend bridging strangers' preconceived notions felt humbling. Morning dawned, painting the sky with rosy hues. Connor decided to do one final, longer hike before heading home, picking a moderate trail with scenic overlooks. He and Juno set off, the dog's tail swishing as they ascended steadily. Birds sang from hidden perches. Breezes carried the scent of pine resin. The gloom of valleys below gave way to glimpses of far horizons. They passed occasional hikers, some of whom recognized Juno. Nodding in friendly acknowledgement, the path was well marked, so he felt safe letting the dog roam slightly ahead on a slack leash, sniffing branches or bounding lightly over stones. At an overlook, Connor paused to catch his breath and admire the sweeping panorama. Juno pricked her ears at something behind them, letting out a short bark. Connor glanced back, just a couple approaching, likely seeking the same vantage. He gave them space, waiting for them to join. The couple, leaning on each other, introduced themselves as newlyweds on a honeymoon, delighted to see a friendly pit bull in the wild. They'd heard stories of a rescue dog in these mountains, ironically not realizing they were meeting that very dog. Connor smiled inwardly, choosing not to overshadow their own hiking joy with the story. After a restful moment, they parted ways. Connor guided Juno around another bend, discovering a tranquil nook by a trickling stream. He let the dog lap up fresh water, rummaging for a snack in his backpack. The air shimmered with midday heat, the forest hush almost meditative. As he ate, he reflected on how quickly life could shift from routine to crisis. From anonymity to mild local fame, he had never sought recognition, only wishing to share nature with his dog. Yet now, he carried this subtle brand of heroism in the eyes of onlookers. Juno, of course, was unchanged, still the same calm, big-headed pit bull who simply responded to people's needs. That thought comforted him. Finishing the snack, he patted Juno's sturdy shoulder. "Ready to head down, girl?" Her tail rose, a sure sign of readiness. The descent back to the trailhead was gentle, warm sunlight filtering in patches. By late afternoon, they reached the parking lot, where a ranger recognized Juno and offered a parting wave. Connor loaded the dog into the SUV, giving a final glance at the mountain peaks. Perhaps they'd return again soon. There might be more travelers in need. Or perhaps just the quiet gift of a scenic hike. He drove away, Juno leaning her muzzle near the open window, ears fluttering in the breeze. The memory of Sasha's grateful tears lingered. as did Caden's near choking from a different story. Different crises. Same unwavering loyalty from a Pitbull. Connor tapped the steering wheel, letting a small smile curve his lips. He realized Juno had quietly saved more than just a day, she was changing hearts. One bark or rescue at a time. They arrived back in suburban life, where the sidewalks and dog parks felt a world away from mountain trails. Yet each time they roamed the neighborhood, Connor noticed small changes. Neighbors who once avoided them now approached for a greeting. Children who were once shy asked to pet Juno. Curious about the hero dog, he handled these encounters graciously, praising Juno's gentleness, reminding them she was simply a well-treated pit bull doing what came naturally, protecting and caring. If anything, it spurred a sense of community closeness. Over fences or across driveways, people ventured out of their comfort zones to chat about dogs, about the synergy of man and nature, about the illusions media sometimes spun. At home, life resumed a calm routine. Connor's job demanded some focus, and Juno sprawled across the living room floor, chewing a durable toy shaped like a bone. Weekends brought more local hikes or visits to the dog park. Occasionally, Connor considered enrolling Juno in a formal search and rescue training program. But the time commitment and official protocols felt daunting. Perhaps, he mused, it was enough that Juno had proven her capacity to help. If fate placed them in such a position again, he trusted she'd respond just as fearlessly. Sasha and Connor remained in occasional contact via text. She updated him that she was back to hiking in safer, less remote areas, always triple-checking her bearings, feeling a renewed respect for the land's grandeur. She'd also become a modest advocate for Pitbull adoption in her social circles, insisting people read about Juno's rescue. If one dog can sense I was lost in the forest, maybe Pitbulls have bigger hearts than we realize, she told a friend, who then passed on the sentiment. Like ripples in a pond, the story traveled from ear to ear, from city apartments to mountain cabins, quietly battling negative stereotypes. In fleeting quiet moments, Connor found himself reflecting on chance. A single day, a single dog's bark, changed multiple lives. He recognized an undercurrent of wonder, how dogs, especially those mislabeled as dangerous, could rise to the occasion when compassion was needed. And if more folks gave them that chance, perhaps society's walls of prejudice might come down. Juno's unwavering loyalty was proof enough for him. As the summer drifted toward its golden end, and cooler winds teased the nights, the memory of Bright Peak's rescue did not vanish. In a small lounge at the ranger station, an article pinned to a bulletin board depicted Juno with Sasha, culminating in a line about a pit bull who guided a lost hiker to safety. Next to it, new orientation packets for volunteer rangers included a short mention that in an emergency, keep watch for hikers traveling with dogs who might detect trouble. Often, animals sense more than we do. A subtle nod to Juno's legacy within those pine-covered slopes. No grand ceremony crowned them. No official medals pinned to the dog's collar. Instead, real life advanced in measured footsteps, forging deeper acceptance. The next time Connor and Juno visited the park, they strolled a lesser-known trail at dawn. Dew clinging to the grass. Peace enveloped them, no pressing drama. Occasionally, Juno would freeze at a rustle in the brush, nose high, as if verifying no one was lost or in danger. Connor, lips curved in a private smile, would say, "It's all good, girl," and the pitbull would trot on, a living symbol of unwavering guardianship in a realm of towering evergreens and hidden paths. The late days of summer brought a gentle shift to everyday life. Even as the scorching sun still baked the streets at midday, early evenings carried a hint of approaching autumn. Leaves in certain pockets of the countryside began yellowing at the edges, and the wind carried a faint crispness. For Connor and Juno, life continued in a familiar pattern: weekday routines near the suburban home, weekend jaunts to local trails, an occasional return to Bright Peak National Park. Yet beneath that calm exterior, ripples from Juno's rescue of Sasha and the pitbull's broader influence never fully subsided. In the weeks after the demonstration at the ranger station, more hikers came forward wanting to meet Juno in person. Some even emailed the park, asking if that pit bull who found the lost traveler would be present on certain dates. The rangers, amused by the low-key celebrity effect, would respond politely that Juno was not an official staff member, but a visiting dog with a knack for sniffing out trouble. Officer Sierra joked that perhaps they should craft a special, Junior Ranger, bandana for Juno to wear. Connor, hearing about it, laughed warmly, not expecting his dog to become a symbol of the park's inclusive spirit. Occasionally, Sasha reached out to Connor by text, updating him about her new approach to hiking, always traveling with a buddy. Following marked trails, never letting curiosity override safety. She told him that her circle of hiking friends had become curious about pit bulls, with a few even volunteering at local shelters. It's incredible how one event can open our eyes. She wrote, I keep telling them how Juno's calm presence was all that saved me from panic. Connor responded with supportive messages, pleased that Juno's deeds sparked such change. Meanwhile, in Connor's suburb, the wave of Pitbull acceptance continued. Neighbors who once steered their kids away from Juno began allowing interactions. A father named Miguel, who had an 8-year-old daughter, admitted he'd grown up with fear of big dogs, especially pit bulls, but after hearing about Juno's rescue, he let his daughter say hello. Juno greeted her with a gentle tail wag, and soon the girl was giggling as Juno nuzzled her palm. Miguel watched, tension in his shoulders melting away. She's so sweet, he remarked, voice tinged with relief. I guess I've been misinformed all my life. Connor nodded, seeing how these subtle steps added up to a more accepting environment. One sunny Saturday, Connor took Juno to a local dog fair, a small festival dedicated to pet adoptions, training demonstrations, and breed awareness booths. He'd gone in the past, but this time he sensed a different atmosphere around him and Juno. People recognized them from the local news snippet or word of mouth. A booth run by a Pitbull rescue group, Second Chance Bullies, welcomed them warmly. The staff, familiar with Juno's story, asked if he'd share a few words about her. Connor agreed, finding himself unexpectedly at a microphone in front of a modest crowd. Clearing his throat, Connor spoke simply, my Pitbull, Juno, is no different than many other well-trained dogs. She's affectionate, loyal, and loves the outdoors. We happened to be in the right place at the right time to help a lost hiker. But I think it underscores that any dog, if raised responsibly, can do incredible things. Pit bulls have strong noses and big hearts. Sometimes that's all you need to save a life. The crowd applauded softly. A few asked for photos with Juno. Though awkward in the spotlight, Connor allowed it, hoping to encourage more fosters and adoptions. Juno, decked in her everyday harness, wagged politely as cameras snapped. By late afternoon, as the dog fair wound down, a shelter volunteer approached him. We have a few Pitbull mixes waiting for families. Hearing your story might give them a chance. Connor nodded, promising to share the shelter's info with people who asked. In the dog fair's aftermath, he heard from acquaintances that a couple of Pitbulls indeed found adoptive homes. Each time he thought about the chain reaction triggered by one day's event high in the mountains. It buoyed him. Amid these local changes, the park rangers at Bright Peak decided to tweak their approach to hiker education. They created new pamphlets with a section titled, Learning from Four-Legged Friends, featuring a small illustration of a dog sniffing footprints, a subtle nod to Juno. The text advised hikers to remain on marked trails, but also noted that dogs with good training could be a helpful layer of safety in wilderness contexts. The pamphlets avoided singling out pit bulls, but Miss Lily from the children's library of a nearby town, who heard about the new pamphlet, admired the inclusive approach. She was the same librarian who championed a reading program featuring a pit bull. She expressed delight that dogs were getting positive acknowledgement in multiple spheres, urban literacy corners and rugged trails. As summer turned into early autumn, golden leaves began blanketing local parks. Crisp morning air replaced the muggy warmth. Connor decided to plan a weekend getaway to a different range of mountains about an hour's drive from Bright Peak, just to let Juno experience new trails. They ended up in Pinecrest Ridge, a lesser-known but equally scenic area. On the first day's hike, they encountered far fewer people, which suited them. Juno basked in the forest hush, sniffing fallen leaves. Connor found solace in the quiet, unburdened by recognition. But even here, an occasional hiker would pause, a flicker of recognition crossing their face. Are you the guy with the Pitbull from the news? Connor nodded. Word had traveled further than he realized. Some hikers said they'd heard a rumor of a dog saving a lost hiker near Bright Peak. Connor graciously confirmed the story. Usually, they parted with a kind remark or wave, leaving him to continue in relative peace. Juno trotted on, unperturbed by celebrity, eyes scanning for squirrels or interesting scents. One afternoon on Pinecrest's Middle Loop Trail, Connor and Juno stumbled upon a small group of hikers paused near a stream. Their guide, a woman named Rowan, recognized Juno from a distance and approached with a grin. "You're the Pitbull folks from the other mountain, right?" She introduced herself as a part-time guide who had a few advanced hikers. They'd heard rumors that the hero Pitbull roamed these trails as well. Connor chuckled, disclaiming that they were no official rescue squad. Just exploring. Rowan gave Juno a scratch behind the ears, turning to a child in her group who was skittish about dogs. "See, Ty? She's gentle," Rowan coaxed. The child, after initial hesitation, let Juno sniff his hand. Moments later, Ty giggled as Juno licked his fingers. Rowan's group thanked Connor for letting them greet the dog, remarking that it was refreshing to see Pitbull stereotypes challenged so naturally. Slowly, an idea formed in Connor's mind. Nudged by repeated questions from hikers, he consulted a friend who worked in dog training about the possibility of Juno receiving some form of official certification. Maybe not full-scale search and rescue, but a recognized, canine good citizen, or therapy dog, credential. Juno had effectively functioned as a rescue dog once. She also had a temperament that might help reduce misconceptions. The friend encouraged it, saying such certification might open doors to volunteer roles. "You already do the practical part. Why not have the official part, too?" the friend joked. Connor mulled it over. He recognized the potential. Juno, with basic official paperwork, could help with park demonstrations, public events, maybe even children's reading sessions like the library ones. He weighed the time commitment, the cost, the process. Ultimately, he decided it was worth investigating. Over the next few weeks, he enrolled Juno in a local training class designed for advanced dogs aiming for therapy or good citizen tests. The sessions involved brushing up on commands in distracting environments, ensuring Juno wouldn't react to loud noises or sudden movements. She breezed through the steps, tail wagging all the while. The trainer was impressed by her calm focus, particularly how she responded gently to strangers. As the dog progressed in training, a sense of pride bloomed in Connor. He recalled the hiker Sasha's panic, how Juno had stood resolute. Now, seeing Juno hold a perfect sit-stay under the trainer's watch, ignoring a squeaky toy dangled before her, confirmed that this dog had the discipline to handle more official volunteer roles. He daydreamed about a future in which Juno might accompany rangers occasionally, or help at a local reading program. Each scenario brought a fresh surge of gratitude for the dog's presence in his life. Late autumn arrived, painting the landscape in fiery gold and crimson leaves. Crisp air replaced the lingering humidity, and a swirl of damp wind preceded winter's approach. In the city, people began wearing light jackets, while at the dog park, owners chatted about holiday plans. Juno's training class concluded with a simple test, demonstration of good manners. Proper reaction to unexpected stimuli. Polite greetings. She passed with flying colors, receiving a good citizen certificate the trainer handed Connor ceremonially. "She's a star, no doubt," the trainer said. "You might explore therapy certification if you want. She's calm enough to do hospital visits. Maybe." Connor ran a hand over the certificate, smiling at Juno. "We'll see," he said. "She's done quite a lot already. Just being herself." That evening, he pinned the certificate to his living room corkboard, near a small collage of photos from their hikes, some with scenic vistas, others capturing Juno's bright eyes mid-trail. A sense of finality washed over him. The story that started on a remote mountainside with a lost hiker was now culminating in recognized achievements for a dog many still labeled dangerous by default. Life could be ironically beautiful. Word of the new certification reached the rangers at Bright Peak. Officer Sierra emailed Connor, congratulating him. She teased that if the park needed a volunteer canine for occasional educational tours or safety demos, would he be open? He responded with a warm yes. explaining he and Juno would be thrilled to help occasionally if schedules aligned. Sierra felt genuine excitement at forging a link between official park events and Juno's new credentials. Plans brewed for a small, wilderness safety day, next spring, featuring dog demonstrations, kids' activities, and sessions on reading trail markers. Meanwhile, Sasha, back in her city routine, invited Connor to a small meetup of hiking enthusiasts. She told them about her misadventure, and how Juno's bark led to rescue. She also recounted how the dog's advanced training now made her a recognized figure. The group, many of whom carried leftover biases or simply ignorance about pit bulls, found themselves enthralled. A few expressed the usual, "Wow, I had no idea pit bulls could be so gentle. They seem so strong and unstoppable." Sasha retorted, "They can be unstoppable in love and loyalty, not just aggression. One saved me from a terrifying night in the mountains." The group decided to schedule a day hike with Sasha, ironically adopting safer practices like using a buddy system and consistent check-ins, all spurred by her cautionary tale. In mid-November, a crisp Saturday, Connor and Juno once again headed to Bright Peak for a short day trip. The autumn chill had tinted the forest with partial leaf loss, the ground littered with crunchy orange-brown layers. The trails had fewer visitors, many deterred by the approaching winter. Upon arriving, Connor recognized a familiar figure near the ranger station, Caden's father. Caden was the little girl from the library who had once choked on candy. They had come for a family outing. The father recognized Juno from local stories, greeting them with a grin. "So, you're the mountain rescue dog? Caden's heard about that. She told me how you saved her in the library once. But I guess you save hikers too?" Connor smiled, clarifying the dog's multiple feats. Just a combination of good instinct and timely presence. Caden, wide-eyed, approached to pat Juno, who responded with a content wag. The father invited them to walk part of the loop together. They obliged, forging a small group with Caden skipping along, occasionally peppering Connor with questions about Juno's training. He answered patiently, describing scent work, recall commands, the difference between aggression and protective loyalty. Caden nodded in wonder. By the end of the trail, they parted ways, the father promising to share the story further. Another subtle ripple. Throughout late fall, the mountainous region prepared for winter snows. Rangers started cautioning hikers about icy trails. The reading program at the children's library in the city paused as the holiday season approached. Miss Lily and her staff arranged a small holiday-themed event, and they invited dogs from local therapy organizations. She extended a personal invitation to Connor. "We'd love to have Juno cameo, even if she's not reading with kids, so families see her and realize how gentle pit bulls can be." Connor, flattered, agreed. And so, on a chilly December weekend, Connor and Juno stepped into a festively decorated library. Garlands, paper snowflakes, and a small Christmas tree adorned the children's corner. Kids wearing sweaters and reindeer antlers milled about, sipping hot cocoa. Miss Lily ushered them in, directing them to a corner where other therapy dogs lay on blankets. Each dog wore a holiday accessory. A gentle golden retriever had a small jingle bell collar. A poodle wore a Santa bandana. Miss Lily offered Juno a green bandana with embroidered snowflakes. The pit bull seemed to take it in stride, blinking as if to say, "Fine, I'll wear it." Parents recognized Juno from local press or word of mouth. Some approached with kids in tow, exclaiming, "Look, honey, that's the dog who helps kids read and saved a child from choking." Juno responded with her usual calm wag, letting kids scratch behind her ears. The other therapy dog owners admired Juno's composure, some praising her bulwark posture. "Pit bulls can be so stable if properly trained," one said. "She's a great ambassador." Connor felt warmth in his cheeks, proud and a bit overwhelmed by the attention. A short storytime commenced, with Miss Lily reading a holiday tale about sharing and friendship. The children gathered in a circle. Juno lay among them, a few kids resting hands on her side as they listened. She didn't flinch at the sudden applause or the squeals of excitement. Her training, plus natural temperament, made crowds manageable. Connor observed from the edge, reflecting that not too long ago, a pit bull in a children's library might have caused raised eyebrows. Now, it was simply an accepted part of the scene. Near the event's end, Miss Lily announced a "thank you" sage moment, referencing the library dog from their reading program. Then she joked, "But we also want to thank Juno, a new friend who's proven that pitbulls come in many forms. Some read with kids, some rescue hikers, both equally amazing." Applause followed, kids giggling. Connor gave a small wave. Juno blinked, unimpressed by formal praise, content to receive a gentle rub from a toddler in a Santa hat. That toddler, eyes shining with curiosity, murmured, "Doggy big." Connor smiled. "She's big in heart too." As the library's holiday event wound down, families drifted off, arms full of borrowed books, and children hopped on sugar from cocoa and candy canes. Miss Lily gifted Connor a small ornament shaped like a paw print. On it, she'd written, "Thank you, Juno." With the year, he accepted it, touched by the gesture. "You're always welcome here," Miss Lily said, stooping to pat Juno. "Your presence has changed more than you'll ever know." Connor felt the echo of those words, recalling Caden's meltdown, the reading improvements, how a single dog anchored children's fears. Indeed, the synergy of dog and library had blossomed into trust. By the time Connor and Juno returned to the SUV, dusk was settling in, city lights blinking on. He hung the new ornament from the rearview mirror for a moment. Swirling with quiet pride, he realized that the rescue from the mountains was just part of Juno's ongoing story, her potential to cross boundaries. Bridging anxieties in libraries, saving hikers in hidden valleys. Each small piece of the puzzle added to a broader mosaic. Pitbulls defying harsh stereotypes. Children discovering reading confidence. A lost traveler spared a frigid night among pines. In the following weeks, winter clamped down. Snow fell in flurries across the region, blanketing Bright Peak slopes and the suburban neighborhoods. Connor often took Juno to a local park to let her romp in the fresh powder, bounding joyfully after snowballs. Occasionally, he checked the park's website for announcements about winter trail closures. The Rangers, in holiday spirit, posted a highlight reel of the year's events, including a small mention of Juno the Pitbull's rescue of a lost hiker, thanking visitors for respectful hiking. Sasha, now an avid winter hiker, though more cautious than ever, messaged Connor saying she joined a snowshoeing club. She invited him and Juno to come along for a short winter trek if schedules allowed. Connor liked the idea, seeing a chance to keep Juno engaged and also to reaffirm that winter conditions need not hamper safe hiking. If anything, Juno's sense of smell might be more crucial in snowy terrain. They planned to meet in January, once the holiday rush calmed. As the new year began, Connor found himself flipping through a phone gallery of pictures from the previous months. Juno nestled by Caden at the library, the demonstration at Bright Peak, Sasha's relieved expression upon rescue. Each image told a story of how a dog could unify strangers. On a whim, he compiled them into a short slideshow, adding simple captions about responsible dog ownership, pitbull acceptance, and the power of trust. When he shared it on social media, the responses were overwhelmingly positive, some from old school friends, others from total strangers who wrote, "I used to fear pitbulls, but your story changed my mind." The synergy repeated, a single dog's quiet heroism rippling outward, weaving new connections. Mid-January arrived with heavier snowfall. The city streets iced over, requiring cautious driving. Connor layered up Juno in a warm canine vest for outings, her short coat needing extra insulation. The date for the winter trek with Sasha's club loomed near. Despite the cold, he looked forward to seeing how Juno fared in the snow-laden forest. The memory of one rescue overshadowed by the knowledge that such terrain demanded vigilance. They met at a designated winter trail in Pinecrest Ridge, a smaller crowd than summer. Sasha, beaming with a new confidence, introduced them to about 6 other participants in sturdy boots and snowshoes. Juno sniffed each politely, tail wagging. They began their route along a gently ascending path, the crisp air stinging their cheeks. Snow-draped pine branches, turning the woods into a silent cathedral of white. Footsteps crunched, breath misted. Sasha occasionally looked over her shoulder, telling Juno, "Not leaving me behind again, right?" with a playful wink. Connor smirked, noticing how she'd grown bolder. Ironically, thanks to that frightening experience in the mountain. Halfway through, They paused at a clearing to sip hot cocoa from thermoses. Juno sniffed the air, ears pricking. Connor half expected some new crisis. But it turned out to be a deer further down the slope. The Pitbull let out a short bark, quickly quieting at Connor's command. The group, amused, realized the dog was simply acknowledging wildlife. The trek resumed uneventfully, culminating in a vantage point with sweeping views of frost-touched valleys. In that hush, the hikers chatted about how both Sasha and Juno overcame a formidable challenge, forging a bond that transcended a chance meeting. For Sasha, it was a literal lifesaver. For Juno, perhaps just another day in the woods. But from the outside, it felt like fate. They snapped group photos, Juno standing front and center. The improbable star. Sasha posted them online with a caption about embracing new beginnings with the dog who found me in my darkest hour. Comments poured in, equal parts admiration and curiosity. By the time they descended, the sun had begun its slow winter set, painting the sky in delicate oranges and pinks. Connor felt an undercurrent of satisfaction, seeing how Sasha's fear of wilderness had transformed into a cautious, yet determined love. She parted ways with a final hug for Juno, promising to keep championing the cause of Pitbull acceptance. "I'll see you around," she said, eyes shining. "Maybe next time, I'll be the one who helps someone else. Thanks to what you taught me." As the next months rolled on, life found a steady rhythm once more, winter melting into early hints of spring. The orchard blossoms in some outskirts, the city's dog parks less treacherous with melted ice. Connor and Juno visited a local therapy dog group for advanced workshops, learning new cues in case they wanted to help with reading sessions or calm anxious children in after-school programs. Each time Juno passed with ease, her stoic composure impressing the instructors. They asked if he'd consider formal therapy visits to hospitals. He wasn't sure yet, but he kept an open mind. Under all these expansions, the essence of the story remained the same, one Pitbull, shaped by empathy and sense, bridging the divide society placed on her breed. Connor often glimpsed it in small ways. Neighbors who once side-eyed them now offering a wave. Kids who approached to chat about dog safety or wilderness stories. The notion that some hearts might remain closed never vanished. But the shift in attitudes overshadowed the naysayers. Soon, it was commonplace to see people greet Juno with the comment, "I heard you're the rescue dog," or, "Thank you for changing my perspective." Eventually, the rangers at Bright Peak announced a spring trail safety day, inviting local hikers and families for demonstrations on first aid, navigation, and canine assistance tips. Officer Sierra officially asked if Connor and Juno could lead a short talk about how dogs sense lost individuals. Referencing Juno's role, the invitation felt like a full-circle moment. Connor, still no spotlight seeker, agreed for Juno's sake. "She deserves it more than I do," he teased. When the day arrived, the park was alive with new spring buds and mild sunshine. Tents popped up near the visitor center, hosting workshops on everything from using a map and compass to purifying water. Among them stood a small platform for short talks. Connor, wearing this simple ranger volunteer badge, guided Juno up. Families and hikers gathered. Curious, Sierra introduced them, recounting how Juno discovered Sasha last year. She also cited the day the dog ironically saved Caden from choking in an unrelated library event. Ripples of awe followed. Connor took the mic, describing how he'd always let Juno explore scents from puppyhood, reinforcing her curiosity with gentle commands. "She's just a normal pit bull who loves hikes." But letting her follow a scent on that day led to finding Sasha. He paused, scanning the crowd. In the front row, a father perched a toddler on his hip, the child stroking a plush dog toy. Next to them, an older woman in a hiking cap, eyes brimming with emotion. Connor recognized that many had their own reasons for attending, a thirst for safety knowledge, a desire to see the now famous dog, or a hidden fear of losing someone on a trail. He concluded by stressing, dogs of all breeds can be protective and skilled if raised with care. Juno isn't special because she's a pit bull. She's special because she's a well-loved dog who repays trust with devotion. Applause rose. Juno, panting contentedly, gave her signature slow wag. Children crept closer, snapping pictures or offering a shy pat. The crowd parted to let Caden and her father greet them. They'd traveled from the city for the event. wanting to see Juno in this more official capacity. Caden, older by nearly a year, beamed at the dog, remembering both the library meltdown and hearing about the rescue. She told the father in earshot, "She's like an angel dog." "Dad," the father, blinking back tears, nodded. Sasha also appeared, having driven in for the day. She approached the platform with a wide smile, hugging Connor, then kneeling to Juno's level. "You keep inspiring me," she whispered, scratching the dog's ear. "Now I want to try new peaks. But carefully, with friends, and I'll never forget how you sniffed me out." Juno responded by licking Sasha's hand, forging an unspoken bond that soared past the memory of near tragedy. The remainder of Trail Safety Day was a swirl of activities. But Juno's presence lingered as a highlight. People left with pamphlets on safe hiking, emergency whistles, small first aid kits, and a mental note that dogs, especially pit bulls, could be guardians in the wild. In the hush of late afternoon, as the tents folded and the last of the rangers stowed gear, Connor and Juno quietly packed up. The adrenaline of public speaking receding, Officer Sierra shook Connor's hand, stooping to give Juno a final pat. "She's a treasure," Sierra said softly. "Thanks for sharing her with us." Connor merely smiled. No words needed. That evening, the golden dusk cradled Bright Peak's pine silhouettes in gentle light. Connor and Juno strolled a short path near the entrance, letting the day's tension dissolve. The dog sniffed at pine needles, rummaging for interesting scents. Connor reflected on how far they'd come from a random weekend hike to this. The setting sun bathed them in soft orange. He bent down, pressing his forehead to Juno's for a fleeting moment. She wagged, untroubled by the swirl of events. Back in the city, a small array of changes flourished. Children in the reading program or families who followed the library's updates began discussing pit bulls with less fear. A handful of newly minted dog adopters took on Pitbull or pit mixes after hearing Juno's story. Shelters reported a small but noticeable shift in adoption rates for blocky-headed dogs. Kaylee, the mother of the child who once choked, posted on social media about the day she met a pit bull in a mountain safety demonstration, quietly weaving threads between these separate near disasters averted by pit bull empathy. The cycle of acceptance continued, overshadowing centuries of stigmas in small, steady increments. Connor settled into a comfortable existence, balancing his day job with volunteer stints. If the library or a local group needed a dog to comfort anxious children, or to do a short demonstration about trail safety, he'd consider bringing Juno. She adjusted seamlessly, lying among kids who read aloud or letting a parent ask about the day you rescued that hiker. Each conversation warmed the edges of skepticism. The more they saw Juno's calm stare and gentle posture, the less room there was for fear. And in quiet moments, Connor recognized that the story's real core might never appear on front-page headlines. It was a tapestry of everyday transformations, from Sasha's reformed hiking habits to Caden's respect for reading with a pit bull. From random hikers' awe to the subtle policy changes at the park that recognized dogs as potential trail guardians. He suspected that, a decade from now, people might still mention the time a pit bull guided a lost traveler in Bright Peak, or calmly signaled a librarian that a child was choking. Even if the details blurred, the moral would persist. Empathy and heroism can come from unexpected corners. Bridging this all with hope. As the snow melted into spring, new blossoms and chirping birds welcomed a rebirth of color in the region. On a mild Sunday, Connor and Juno ventured to a local orchards festival. The orchard staff, hearing rumors of Juno's story, invited them free of charge. Families strolled under flowering trees, kids squealing over apple cider donuts. Some recognized Juno, stopping to chat. A father confessed, "I used to keep my daughter from approaching pit bulls, but you changed that. She's thrilled to greet your dog." The daughter, timid at first, eventually scratched Juno's ears, giggling at the dog's playful sniff. Another small victory. It struck Connor that a single day, a single rescue, had sown a year of transformations. He'd never planned on being an ambassador for pit bull acceptance. Yet each step Juno took, each child's hand that patted her, eroded a sliver of prejudice. The Orchards Festival ended with a scenic wagon ride, children laughing as they threw apple peels to a passing goat pen. Juno quietly sat next to Connor on the hay bale seat, panting in soft content. The sky overhead glowed in pastel hues. A gentle exhale of day's end. Connor realized, with a quiver of gratitude, that they'd found their place in a community newly open to possibility. Returning home that evening, Connor rummaged through old photos, eventually finding the ones from that fateful day on the mountain. The image of Sasha's tear-streaked face standing beside Juno in a clearing re-emerged. Another captured Juno sniffing the trail. Ears alert, he felt tears prick his eyes. The memory of that day's relief soared. Then he found a photo from the library demonstration. Children reading as Juno lay in a circle. Another from the winter trek with Sasha's group. Snow-laden pines framing the dog's silhouette. Each freeze frame told a different chapter of love, empathy, and acceptance. With a thoughtful sigh, he compiled them into a digital album titled, The Adventures of Juno. He included small captions, tracking footprints to find a lost hiker. Library meltdown averted by a calm nose. Winter trek with new friends. He considered printing them into a small book, maybe a personal keepsake. Why not, if it might encourage more families or librarians to adopt a reading with dogs approach? Or more hikers to trust in the loyalty of a Pitbull. That was reason enough. At last, the day ended with Juno sprawled on the living room rug. Connor placed a new bone treat near her, smiling as she nodded contentedly. He realized that despite all the talk of heroism, to Juno, life was simple: see trouble, bark or nudge a solution. She needed no spotlight or applause. This dog lived for calm connections, pressing her muzzle into a child's lap or sniffing a faint track in the forest. Everything else was human fuss. Connor sank onto the couch, switching off the overhead lamp, letting the hush of night fill the room. Outside, the suburban streetlights cast soft glows on sidewalks where no one now feared a Pitbull's presence. A dog's gentle shadow overcame all. In the hush of that living room, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, whether it was more volunteering, short educational moments, or simply continuing daily walks that offered a visual testament to Pitbull kindness. The library might request more reading sessions. The rangers might call them in for a summer safety workshop. Who knew? Juno's quietly heroic spirit could light up small corners of life whenever needed. And that was the real gift, the unstoppable capacity for devotion in an animal society once deemed threatening. Thus, the story pressed onward, not ending in a final flourish but branching out in 1,000 tiny directions. In each trail discovered, each child reassured, each parent learning that big jaws don't always mean big danger, a sense of quiet transformation thrived. Juno had forever woven herself into the hearts of a community she never asked to lead. Through bark and sniff, posture and presence, she told the world that bridging empathy was not restricted by breed or expectation. And as long as there was a child needing comfort or a wandering footstep in the forest, Juno was ready, always near. Tail wagging, nose keen, heart wide open,